Any scientifically, you cannot drink alkaline water and it makes your cells apolytic. The closer you are to nature, the healthier you'll be.
All right. Happy Saturday, everyone. I am Carolyn, and you are in the Mind of Nature, hosted by Dr. Zarif, the nutritionist. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is a pre-recording, but you can go ahead and drop your comments because we will be in the comments checking them, okay? We have a great show. Happy Black History Month, first of all, right? I should have started off with saying that. We are talking about the history of Black doctors. We have Dr. Zarif here. Let's go over just some things that we're going to be discussing today because it's great information. And please go ahead and grab your pens and paper. All right. Black doctors and Black doctors and inventors. Okay. Why Black people don't trust Black doctors, and Black doctors, I'm going to say unalived at the hands of mobs, just for that word. All right. But we have a great show lined up for you. Dr. Zarif, go ahead and join me here on stage so we can get started. Hello, and grand rising to you.
Thank you, and grand rising to you. We got to say that we definitely are always a little more happier than usual because we have Dr. James with us today, and this is always a boost to us. The energy is high, and we can't. Oh man, this is going to be a really wonderful conversation. We're going to talk about some very, very valid points, some that you will be able to remember for the rest of your life because they are life changing. And we want to share this with you because we know that when you know, at least you have the opportunity to make an informed choice. So it's really important that you get involved, get to put your remarks down and help me to join Dr. I almost said Dr. Zarif. Dr. James is in the house. All right. Woo.
Thank you. Great to be here. That if you had said your own name, that would have been a compliment. So that's
Oh, thank you, brother. Yeah, we got some great ones that we're going to get right into, Dr. James. One of the things when we talk about the Black history, the same people pop in our head every year. So it's like, what is going on with that? But that is a part of, and we're going to discuss that. Not to a large degree, but we're going to have a discussion about why do we feel like that we're just in this little box and that's all we're gonna know. Rosa Parks, oh, Malcolm X every now and then, and Booker T. These kind of things we've been learning since we've been in elementary school. So why are we going around and round in circles? And that's why we are here today. We're going to actually discuss some of that. Want to kick it off though with some of the Black inventors and some of the incredible Black doctors that we've had. And this is really important because we have other issues with that, don't we? We have some issues about being Black and Black people not wanting to have a Black doctor, or Black people, and we speaking in general, that say things like, I want a real doctor, a person that actually looks down on the person, has an MD or has a PhD or has whatever credential, but it still doesn't mean anything because the infecting of our society has been so effective that we're still fighting against some of those lies. So let's get on to it. First of all, welcome, Dr. James. How you feeling this morning?
feeling great. Feeling great. I love this time of the year. So it's great to be here in this space.
Yeah, I gotta start by saying, Dr. James. Now, this is really myself. I know I work out, but Dr. James, he works out and then he talks to you while he's working out, and that how many? And think about this: how many people, forget about black, brown, orange, whatever, but how many people, especially a doctor that you've seen that shows you the interest in the running or lifting weights or any of that. That is, first of all, that's very rare, and thank you for doing that, because we know that exercise alone doesn't get it done. Nutrition alone doesn't get it done. Supplements alone doesn't get it done. So we'll be talking about, you'll hear of the word balance a lot when we're speaking. So what do you think about that, bro?
I couldn't agree more. What we're talking about is a holistic approach.
Yes.
When you aren't dealing with a holistic approach, you're dealing with something fragmented or reduced down to to some simple level, and that's part of the problem with modern medicine is this reductionist approach where you reduce it and you eliminate a lot of things and you focus on one thing, but then you have a whole realm of other factors and influences that you ignore, and that's one reason why we have one of the sickest countries of the westernized world.
Led by black people. The fatalities, we're still out in front. We're out in front as far as a lot of other things too. But when it comes to this eating situation, we can do better. So that's what we'll be working on today. And we're going to start it off. And Dr. James, you got the floor. I'm going to just bring up this the black doctors and inventors. Are there any doctors that you can think of that you would like to perhaps present to us, so that we'll add that to our list of great black doctors?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to focus on doctors who probably we've never heard of that should be household names. Like there's a Dr. Alexander Thomas Augusta. I never heard of him back in school and college and high school, and to go back as far as you can. You just nobody hardly knows about this brother.
Yes.
But he was born in Norfolk, Virginia, not a slave. He was born free, but he was raised at a time when it was a crime to teach reading to black people. So this brother taught himself how to read, and he took some great strides in that area, working as a barber, and became interested when he was a barber in medicine. So he studied, and then I guess he got some information that University of Pennsylvania was very receptive to some blacks getting there, but he was rejected. So this brother went to Canada. He went to Toronto, Canada, for school, and was medically trained there, and then came back after receiving his medical degree. Actually, he was invigorated, or rather stimulated, by the fact that in 1863, I think 1861 or 63, when the Emancipation Proclamation came about, he wrote a letter to Abraham Lincoln and to the Department of War, the Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton was his name, asking if he could become a commissioned surgeon in the Union Army, and he was rejected. But the brother persisted. He ended up moving to Washington, D.C., taking some military medical exam, passing it. And then I guess they felt like, well, we can't deny this guy now. And they commissioned him as a major in the U.S. Army, the first black major surgeon in the U.S. Army.
Wow.
Now, the reason why he was turned down by Abraham Lincoln is people are, well, why would Abraham Lincoln? He freed the slaves and all this stuff. Well, they knew that there weren't going to be any whites taking orders from this man. They can give him all the ribbons and status, but white folks were not receptive to there being a leader in the military. So they make him a leader, and then guess what happens? He does go up against racism, and they start complaining. People in the military and the hospital start complaining to Congress. This black man's telling us what to do. This Negro's telling us what to do. So they end up transferring him. They say not as a demotion, but they transfer him to the Freedmen's Hospital. Now, the Freedmen's Hospital later became Howard University's hospital, but they transferred him there, and he was the first black medical administrator of any hospital in America. Again, that's Alexander Dr. Alexander Thomas Augusta. So there, he ends up tearing down all kinds of walls and prejudice and all that. There were many white doctors, mind you, at that time at Howard, and so he was really breaking a lot of barriers, and he did a lot of good while he was there. Later on, he received later on he had the battle for receiving appropriate salary because he was getting $7, I think, a day or something, and that was what enslaved military soldiers were getting. Now, people that were at his status when he was major, they were getting much more, and the whites were getting more. So he wrote to to someone, a senator in Massachusetts, and within a few days they corrected that. He later on became lieutenant colonel. The guy was doing so much good. He became lieutenant colonel, the first lieutenant colonel in the Union Army. So this he was brilliant. He had a professorship in surgery at Howard, and these are people that should, like I say, be household names, but they're hidden figures instead.
That's incredible, man. My mouth, I gotta close my mouth. Um, that is incredible. You know, many of the black doctors and inventors have made foundational contributions in medicine, yet they remain far less recognized than they deserve. And this continues on today. I haven't yet heard any president or anybody of any substantial position that said they apologized to black people for terrible treatment over all of these years. Not one, but we always fall in love with them because they'll say things like, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we just like, oh, I believe him. I believe him. Well, we got a lot of work to do. It starts with well, it doesn't start with, but as another part, we have King Drew Medical Center here, and some of you probably heard me on that particular radio station. But Dr. Charles Drew, since we have it right here in the city, revolutionized modern medicine through his breakthrough in the blood storage and large scale blood banking. This is something that never even existed, like innovations that saved countless lives during the World War II and laid the whole groundwork for today's transfusion systems. Then there was Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. Now, this is one of the first physicians to successfully perform open heart surgery in 1893. This is a brother. He helped establish modern surgical standards long before such procedures were considered feasible. And then we have Dr. Alex Kennedy, and he is the first. Alexa uh, Kennedy was the first black woman neurosurgeon and advanced pediatrics and neurosurgery. All of this improved the outcomes of children and complex brain and spinal disorders. Think about that connection, the brain and the spine. Two of the most complex areas in the entire body. Is incredible. I used to hear doctors have big debates over, like kyphoplaque, uh, kyphoplasia, and then which is, that's like when you have problems with the vertebrae in your vertebral column. But they used to have arguments about who's the best, who's the most incredible, who's the most learned doctor or smartest, and all of that. I think that happens in every genre of working, though. But while quietly reshaping a field that had long excluded women and people of color, Dr. Alexa Kennedy continues to be a very important part of our history when we talk about black doctors. Now, equally overlooked are black inventors whose medical devices and the technologies power everyday healthcare. We start with Patricia Bath, and she invented the laser focal probe. Now, I haven't, and I'm not familiar with this, but it's a device that transformed cataract surgery. I think Dr. Johnson, Dr. James, I think Dr. Johnson could appreciate that. Um, and this is the actual what was I saying? Oh yeah, this Patricia Bath invented the laser focal probe, and this is a device that transformed cataract surgery and restored sight to millions worldwide. And that's why, if a person that's black can affect the whole entire world, improving it still can't be in their minds treated like a human with respect and the same and the equality that other races may feel that they have. And I say may feel that they have because it's not necessarily true, since they're just thinking it, but that doesn't make it true. Particularly benefiting underserved populations. Now they're also Otis Boykin. Now Otis Boykin, though not a physician, engineered the critical electrical components that made pacemakers smaller. And this is really big because before, pacemakers were very cumbersome. They were difficult to maneuver with these, and they're very fragile. But more, they became smaller. And this is all the doings of Otis Boykin. Not only smaller, but the more reliable and more affordable, directly impacting the cardiac care. Now, these innovators, they actually worked against the systemic barriers, limiting funding. They didn't have a lot of money, the exclusion of institutions, and the historical um, um, some of the historical what would I say, for a historical footprint that they made. Yet they, with those particular devices, they found a way to bring those about, to manifest those different findings. And today we're still affected in a very positive way about it, recognizing that their contribution is not only a matter of historical accuracy, but also an affirmative affirmation that innovation in medicine has long been driven by diverse minds committed to saving lives. Not just black people, but the world. Think about that. It's a global contribution. Want to go on to Dr. James? Dr. James, we're gonna turn it over to you if you want to keep going.
Oh, sure. I'll go next with Dr. William Augusta Hinton. Now, at the beginning of this session, Carolyn said, "Get your pens and paper out." You really should write these names down
Yeah,
because you will forget them 2 days from now. But these should be people that we should be able to recall. So, William Augusta Hinton, this brilliant man was the first African American professor at Harvard University, America's top university. When syphilis was a major threat, this is like in the early 1900s, he was excelling in the area of serology, the study of blood components. He developed a more accurate and simpler method called flocculation. It's a way that the blood will clump, either you can see under a microscope or grossly, by adding certain reagents to it. He was an inventor and a doctor. And it's now called the flocculation method, and it's still used. There's something called the RPR and the VDRL. These are tests that are used to diagnose syphilis. And so he worked in the lab, and he was the first professor, as I mentioned, and worked for 50 years as a academician at Harvard. And then wasn't until 1949 that he actually received professorship. Now, this discovery he made was like in the 1920s, 1927. But He later, after retiring, declined professor emeritus status from Harvard because he was concerned that for so many years he worked without the amenities, without the courtesies of a full professor. He didn't feel right accepting it, and it was a matter of integrity. So he denied professor emeritus status from Howard, which was a powerful indictment of the institution of institutional racism, and it made a difference at Harvard for some subsequent professorships. He believed that his belief was that true equity required more than just a title. And it's ironic that he would make such a major breakthrough while at the same time or shortly thereafter, the Tuskegee experiment was going on. That was for 40 years, from 1932 to 1972, where 600 African Americans suffering from syphilis were observed long after the discovery of penicillin and its use for treatment of syphilis. So that's one of those major ironies, because you have these hidden figures that have done so much to save millions of lives in diagnosis and subsequent treatment, because you don't get really good at treating something until you can make a definite diagnosis. So this man had a striking stamp on health in America, and yet we black people, many black people in the Tuskegee, all of them, Tuskegee experiment, were denied treatment for something that years before the diagnostic platform was set. So that I find really mind-boggling. And circling back to Charles Drew, I'm so glad you mentioned Dr. Charles Drew, because a lot of people don't realize blood banks were created by his discoveries. The American Red Cross came about because of him. He was the first director. Dr. Charles Drew was the first director of the American Red Cross. He saved countless lives in British in the World War One by his blood banks. They had some kind of mobile units that he designed. And interestingly, he was only there for 1 year as head of the American Red Cross, and this is something you don't read about in the books. When we learned about Charles Drew, the few books that were around and when we were in school, and that is that he left the American Red Cross because the leaders of the militaries were putting restrictions on who you could draw blood from. So he had to go to battle so that blacks could actually donate blood. Then when he won that battle, there was another battle. They said, okay, none of this black blood or any non-white blood can go into white soldiers. I mean, that he was flabbergasted. So he resigned on that basis. So it's just, the inequities go way back.
Yeah, and this is really, really it is every time when I hear stories like this, it makes me sick all over again. Because it's just who could even. It's just unfathomable that someone can look at another person, another human, despite their background or despite their culture, despite their beliefs. The one thing that the Europeans did is a good job on spreading the big lie, and we might get a chance to get a little bit into that. But for now, I'm going to go to a question that's really important and maybe can help me with this, Dr. James. Why black people don't trust black doctors? And this is something that we really, really gotta at least, we're not going to sit by and just let it happen. This is hard, it's uncomfortable, but it's a very real question and it deserves a serious, layered answer, not a dismissive one. So we want to really look into the eyes of this question. The short truth is that when trust is broken across generations, it doesn't automatically repair just because the doctor is black. And we're going to go into it a little deeper here so that we'll see how that affects us and what does that mean now. Why don't black people trust black doctors? I mean, do they not know enough, or They're not smart enough? No, all of those answers are no. But if we look at something like, for instance, the hysterical trauma was medical, and it was just internalized over years, years after years. And we're going to talk about some of the iotropistic effects that our stethoscopes have, and the white coats our lab coats have, and scrubs. And they still today, you hardly ever see a doctor like on TV, or if they're getting interviewed. I don't care if they have on a tuxedo, they're going to have the little stethoscope with them, and they'll have the lab jacket on, because we'll talk about what does that actually mean. Black communities didn't just experience racism with white doctors, they experienced medicine itself as an institution of harm. And this is really bad. The black communities, even today, they consistently didn't just experience the racism from the white doctors. They experienced the medicinal, or the medicine itself, as institution for harm. So even today, people like, I ain't going in there and saying, no, man, they ain't doing that to me. That, you will hear things of that nature. Examples like, people feel, even if they don't name them. These are just some of the examples of what people feel. Let's start off with the enslaved people used for surgical experimentation without anesthesia. And Dr. James was getting into that too, like when you talk about Tuskegee and the Tuskegee experiments. And this is a lot of sisters, remember, they did this without anesthesia. Today, you can go in, you can get local anesthesia, you can get, general anesthesia. It really, really keeps us from all the pain. But these were some really wild cowboy, out west, do anything you want to because you white type doctors. And this was just a mess. Another thing is as far as the examples are concerned, forced sterilizations of white women, and that's what we're talking about now. Forced sterilizations, but they were finding that information now. They weren't experimenting to help black women; they were experimenting to help white women at the behest of the black woman. Medical schools robbing black graves. You see, he probably never heard of that before, but the a lot of the, as far as a cadaver was concerned, these were used. They white people would use this without any type of warning or breaking the law or anything. These were just things that were pretty much expected, and black people were not looked at as people. Okay. Segregated hospitals providing inferior care. That's really, really a bad one, because if you used to hear things like, I ain't going to go, if something happens to me, don't take me to King Drew, or today is don't take me to Sentinel Hospital. And we've heard that over and over and over. Back to the last thing I wanted to bring up is that medicine became associated with control. It became associated with harm and exploitation, not healing. And that distrust didn't disappear. It became culturally a memory. And that memory is inculcated today as we speak, because doctors in some of our minds are only one color, or they're only great if they're white, or have that doctor look that we see on TV. And it's really sad. That's why we are talking about this today. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say a few more things and go back to Dr. James. Black doctors are often seen as a part of the system, not the community. That's a huge part because some people don't even recognize doctors as being a part of the Black community. They're just a part of the system. Now, for many patients, well, white coat means power. A hospital means authority. Authority equals the hysterical threat, I would say. When a person confronts another with fearful statements or scaring a person, saying, you might die if you don't get this, forcing them into surgery, so on. So even Black doctors can be perceived as you work for them, not us. You made it out, so you don't understand us. You'll judge me for the same way that they do. This is not personal, it's structural mistrust that's projected onto individuals, and it continues and it will continue if we don't stand up. We have many incredible Black doctors that are worth every penny and worth every moment that you visit them. And we want to get you back to getting examinations, being properly diagnosed, and saving many, many lives because you are being proactive. Dr. James?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the your question you started this segment out with why why black people don't trust black doctors. I agree with your synopsis on that. That I think it's more that it's the system that they don't trust for reasons mentioned, like Tuskegee, Henrietta Lacks. That story with her taking cells without her consent and making billions of dollars. They're still being used now, called HeLa cells. The failed the neglect of not using anesthetics on women. That was in slavery and post slavery. In fact, there's this guy who had a monument in New York, Dr. James Marion Sims, who was considered the father of gynecology. I think he came up with
Oh,
the
yeah.
first use of the speculum that they use in vaginal exams routinely. And this guy was not using anesthesia. I mean, they got rid of that statue, and he's getting some of the deserved criticism, not nearly as much as he deserves, but some of the deserved criticism for how he operated on black people without any consciousness of compassion. And so that, those are things that we should not forget. But I will say that that aside, as far as the trust, and not, I won't say aside, I would just say that I think that there's probably more black people that trust doctors than there are that don't. That trust black doctors than there are that don't. The NMA, the National Medical Association, which I was a member until I retired and still support, it's kind of like the black AMA. They've done some studies, and they've shown in these studies that actually black patients do better under the care of black physicians than they do under the care of non-black physicians. And there are many explanations for that in terms of communication and the connection historically. And many, I know in my experience, the eyes were lit up when I walked into a room with a black patient. They see a black doctor come in. I don't remember ever feeling like they felt they were seeing somebody inferior. They were generally happy to see a black face in
Yeah.
a white coat with a stethoscope. And
Mhm.
so I think that there's more appreciation of that and support of that than there isn't. Although there are exceptions, and often those exceptions are the ones that make headlines and articles and things like that. But generally speaking, we do better taking care of ourselves. Black physicians are less than 5%. Black male physicians, and really black physicians overall, are barely 5%, and we make up a little over 13% of the country. And it was that way 20 years ago. So we have a pipeline problem. We need more black physicians, male and female, in this space. And so I hope we can work on that. But yeah, I think we certainly have our work to do. But historically speaking, the system has been something that has been made for us to be distrustful of.
Yeah, definitely. Well, patients, they may feel talked down to. doctors may unconsciously adopt this institutional language, this tone, this bias, and both sides feel misunderstood. So it is just like Dr. James is saying that being able to communicate, being able to see a doctor without all this other trash or this garbage that we can bring into a doctor's office with us. Sometimes it really feels uncomfortable, especially if you feel like you've been judged, or if you feel like a doctor believes that you don't hurt like white people hurt, or that you can take more. The threshold of your pain is different than any other person, and we can understand that. But this is still not a reason that you can have to stay away from getting an examination. We talk about that constantly. How are you going to do something about something that you don't know about? If you're not aware that you're sick, if you're not aware that you may be doing something as a habit that may not uh, uh, help you to heal, or get it before. Most people that are end up in the hospital, or in these advanced stages, and not the doctor not catching these particular stages, is because sometimes, and a lot of times, we wait so long to go in for an examination. We wait till after the fact. We hurt, there's pain, and you can't do anything else about it. Then you go to the doctor at the doctor's mercy to get help, and it's usually in the emergency room. But if you were to keep up your examinations, like for instance, even just going to a doctor's office and just saying, no, I just want to make sure everything is going all right. Can you give me a CBC? Can you check my A1 hemoglobin A1C? I want to make sure that my heart is strong. I want to make sure that my blood has a balance of glucose. I want or blood sugar. These are things that you can just ask on a yearly basis, getting an annual checkup, and you will find that you will feel better instead of waiting until everything falls apart. And internalized racism is real, and it's painful. And this is centuries of messaging was taught. Like black, for instance, again, has means like less competent to a lot of people. The authority is white. You've probably heard that joke about if it's black or devil food. Why is devil food's cake black and angel food cake is white? And although as silly and simple as that seems, some people thrive on that kind of reference to other people from other parts of the world, or black skin versus even the lighter skin, not even white, but lighter skin. So we want to see if we can graduate from this, because some patients distrust black professionals because success is subconsciously associated with selling out. I remember I was actually I was going in for auditioning. I had the chance to audition for a position, but and these were black directors. They didn't want to. I didn't. They were telling me that everything is good, but can you grow? Then I wasn't wearing a beard, but they didn't like that I didn't have any hair on my face, and they blamed that on my saying that I'm a sellout, or I look like a coon, or you will hear these crazy things that people do to uh, uh, diminish, or just to rip your whole view of you. Don't let anybody do that. Keep in mind of your value. We're going to go ahead and continue. There's some other things that we're going to discuss as we go along. Is when talking about a subject that's pretty tough, pretty sensitive, but very, very necessary but we're doing it for the celebration of Black History Month. And we're not here to be perfect, but we are here to be confident, knowing that we can do something about the condition that we seem to face over and over again. We're going to bring up the beautiful Carolyn Gento so we can move from there. Carolyn?
Thank you so much, Dr. Dr. Zarif. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Wow, great conversation. Just great information. It's like I said earlier. Yes, please make sure you have your pen and paper handy to write down the information that you're hearing. We are doing a pre-recording, so if we are not shouting your name out, just know that hello, hi, we love you, and we appreciate you being here. And I may be in the comments as well answering. Dr. Zarif may be in the comments as well answering. But we are still going to stream on YouTube and on Facebook. Okay. So that's where the stream is going to be. So for anyone that's just coming in, go ahead and still share the live. You can still share the live out. That's always welcome, giving us thumbs up, things like that to help just getting this information out here. Okay, we are live I was going to say Monday through Friday. Ooh, put a pause on that. We are live every Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Okay, 8 a.m. Pacific time. We are talking about the history of Black doctors. That's what we are discussing today. Or Dr. Zarif and Dr. James are discussing today. So this is a great discussion. I'm going to bring Dr. Zarif and Dr. James back on stage here. All right, there you are. Wonderful discussion. Thank you both so much for the information. I know we still got time. I'm not closing out yet, but just want to let you know, thank you so much. This information is great information. I love the dialogue going back and forth with you both. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. James, you want to go and pick it up?
Oh, sure. I would be remiss if we did not bring up the first true physician, the first physician, known physician in the history of the human race,
Whoa.
Imhotep.
Oh, that,
Imhotep preceded Hippocrates. Now, most people, well, I'll say many people relate the father of medicine as Hippocrates. Now, Hippocrates was, I guess, in 450, around 400, BC, I believe, or is AC. But anyway, I think it's about 450 BC. And Imhotep was 2600 BC, right?
wow.
And this guy was a mathematician. He was an architect. Some of those pyramids were designed by Imhotep. He was a physician. He treated people for all kinds of diseases, infectious diseases, various, traumatic diseases. This guy authored books. Now, of course, by that time they didn't have the books as we know them now, right? They had papyrus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but papyrus or papyrus. So, but they were written documents of medical treatments. I mean, this guy was incredible. He was so incredible. Later on, they deified him, and and the Egyptians weren't the only ones to deify. Make gods. Try to
Right.
make gods out of people. The Greeks did that. They have someone that they align with, actually, Imhotep, Asclepius, I think his name. Asclepius, and he's supposed to be the god of healing, the Greek god of healing. But really, the true first physician was Imhotep. And to my point, there's a very renowned, if you Googled his name, Sir William Osler. He was out of Canada, but he was actually at Johns Hopkins for many years teaching medical students. He wrote some of the most renowned and still today used textbooks, The Principles and Practice of Medicine. Sir William Osler. Let me quote what Sir William Osler said in the early 1900s. He said that he proposed that Imhotep was the real father of medicine over Hippocrates. And so that's another one of those things that many of our young people and older people don't know, that the father of medicine was an Egyptian that preceded many of these so-called fathers of medicines today.
Wow. Man, that was so good. I'm just like, Whew. It's just like I'm writing down this. This is, hey, you know what? Y'all don't. Nobody has a excuse for not knowing more after we finish this discussion. If you still talking about, yeah, if they only told us, if we only had that, we only had the same education and all that nonsense. It's time to go ahead and change. There's also, I want to discuss this a little bit, Dr. James, the difference between knowing and choosing. What is the difference between knowing and choosing? And I just started off with, why people, eat so poorly despite knowing the facts of unhealthy choices of lifestyle. People know it, but they don't show it. They know, but can we actually address that question, the difference between knowing and choosing, Dr. James?
Yeah, I'd love to. And it's a struggle. It's, you know, they're they've analyzed this. When I say they, the medical professions analyze this, and have these stages of people making decisions, right?
Right.
There's pre-contemplative, when you don't know. You may not know what you don't know, but you don't even think about making any changes in your life because you haven't even thought about it yet. Then there's contemplative, and that's when you start to know. That's when the knowledge is there, right? And then there's planning, and then there's action, and then there's sustaining. So when you're at that, so that's an early level you bring up, of where you've got the knowledge now, but you're not doing anything about it. And we sat into, you and I sat on one of the Kickstart programs last Tuesday, not yesterday, but a week ago yesterday, where a health expert, an actual health coach, outlined that very thing. She says making that bridge between knowing and doing. So how do we do that? So part of it is expanding your knowledge. That's part of it. Expanding your knowledge. Because I know for me, I didn't start becoming much more active till I started learning more and more about what I didn't know. I spent so many years treating people and telling them they couldn't reverse their high blood pressure, they need to take these medicines, conventionally trained doctor. But I didn't have nutrition training like you have, Dr. Z. So many years before me, you knew these things, and you knew enough to know that you needed to act on these things. So then we're talking about motivators otherwise. What motivates you to move forward? Maybe more knowledge. It may be some bad event for you or somebody you love. Maybe a grandchild that tells you, "Look, why are you smoking, granddad?" I've had people tell me they stopped smoking on a dime when their grandchild looked at them and said,
Wow.
"Well, I don't want you to die." you know.
Wow.
So, figuring out what's the value, what is your why that has enough value, enough depth that you go from knowledge to action. And so that's my take on it.
That's beautiful. And I think just in addition to that, the difference that I find between knowing and choosing is because knowing and choosing actually it live in two different parts of the brain. And the modern life is just engineered to exploit that gap. We have a lot of things that I'm not going to sound like a conspiracist, but I think that there are things that we don't know about ourselves even yet. We don't understand personal value, so we continue making the same mistakes over and over. Knowledge does not control your behavior. This is so important. Just because that's why you've probably had a professor, you've had doctors, you've had pastors, but knowing you might recognize them for knowledge, but knowledge by itself doesn't work. Even Einstein said knowledge is power. But what he didn't say is knowledge is power only when you put it in action. That's what makes it come alive. And what is theirs is even for those that go into the holy books, there's always some phrase that again reiterates the importance of putting action behind your prayer. So I wanted to see if we can get. Oh, but before I move down, Dr. James, did you want to retort?
Well, I will say that I just expand on what you said. I think it's so important. You said something that really resonated with me about you not even knowing sometimes, what you should be doing, or the disposition you're in. And it made me think of this like psychological concept called the Johari window. It was like of Joseph and Harry, I think, or something, that came up with this Johari window where they had these four segments, and one segment was what you perceive yourself to be, right?
Yes.
And then another segment was what outside looking in perceives you to be, because you might perceive yourself as a very upstanding, very gentle, very, communicative person, but how you carry on may from the outside, from someone else's perspective, may be totally different. Right?
Right.
So those they're the two. And then the other one is the third quadrant is your blind spot. These are spots that someone may not see of you, and you may not even recognize. So we have these blind spots. And then the fourth was your potential, for the future based on your experiences and everything else. So I only bring that up. You made me think of that because a lot of times we feel pretty comfortable where we are in the space we are, and we don't realize that there's this other perspective. Not that we should be worried about how others perceive us, but even there's sometimes an inner perspective that hasn't yet been revealed, and that may be revealed through knowledge, through healthy eating, through spiritual connectivity, through proper rest, a lot of the things that we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely on the nose. That's one of the things too that I think that we should keep in mind along with all this wonderful knowledge is also the what do you want? Living life with purpose. This will make everything kind of make sense. You can connect the dots with it, because if you don't connect the dots, what we're saying and what anybody else is saying is just like out the door. And some people are looking for something else, and that something else is something that knocks them off of that chair, and they're not comfortable anymore. Comfortable to me is like what comfortable when if you're comfortable, that's the worst enemy of success, of is the worst enemy of getting better, because when people get comfortable they tend to put the guards down. Have you ever seen a fighter in the boxing ring? He start talking mess, and he got his head all out, and then it's bam bam and it's good night. And it's like, yeah, that is what we do when you see we may have been talking, and you heard something that will definitely help you, something that's very effective. Well, good. The way that you do something about that is to do something about that. Put yourself in motion. That kitchen, start changing there. What are you buying? What are you eating? What time are you doing that? Who are you talking to about food? Even that, not like as a spy, but just recognize and be concerned with what is going in your head, because it's very important. That particular choice will affect the way that you feel, the way that you perform, the foods that you eat and foods that you drink, and you'll be another person that is actually acting out of necessity, and necessity meaning that the things that are called for in order for you to reach certain goals in life. Dr. James?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A very wise person said um, that achievements, personal achievements, tend to follow a sequence, and knowledge is where it starts. But then, then comes motivation. And from what you said, Dr. Zarif, you get motivated once you do find a purpose.
Yeah.
And then following motivation comes, after motivation comes passion. you know so so you start with knowledge, you get motivated, and then you're passionate about it. And probably people can tell that you, Dr. Zarif, and I and Carolyn, we're passionate about what we're doing.
Yes.
We're not getting paid for this.
Right.
you know,
Hmm.
we're passionate about it because we know this is our purpose.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm glad to be in this space with you.
Oh yes, brother, and that's mutual. It's mutual. We are very, very fortunate to man. Just I don't, like you hear people say, no, God doesn't make mistakes. I don't feel that it was a mistake that we just, oops. We have a lot of work to do, and the kind of passion that we present is the kind of passion that's needed to uplift our community and to get people to start listening, stop, look, and listen, and really think about the thing. I know that we don't have enough time, but just so that we can just touch just a little bit. For instance, on the things that's killing us most, and that is the ultra processed food. These these hijacks are, something that people continue to use, and these are people that are not in the survival mode. They just make bad choices or unhealthy choices. So we can turn that around. At least that's reversible. So with the ultra processed foods, these are. Oh, well, I'll let Dr. James go ahead because I know you. I know you're ready for this one.
Yeah, well, why don't we just use this as a primer? Because we know we could spend a whole lot of
Yeah.
time on this. And maybe we can talk about processed foods and labels at one of the next or at our
Mhm.
next event. But yeah, I mean that's such an important thing now because there's a nuance to that now, and that is that now from two different directions, from people that are very well trusted in their research, Dr. Greger and Dr. Neil Barnard, they've given an account looking at over 300 studies, and they found that these ultra processed foods should not all be in the same boat because there's processed meats and other meats, and then there's processed liquids, and then there's processed plants. It just so happens they have concluded from looking at a ton of studies, more than 300 studies, that processed meat is at the top of the danger list that shortens your life, your health span, and your lifespan. Health span is how long you live healthy years without having to see a lot of doctors and get procedures and medicines. And so, yeah, that highly processed meat and regular meat, because there's saturated fats and many other things. Remember, heart disease is the number one thing that takes us out. They're at the top of the list. And then right under that, under them are sugar sweetened and artificially sweetened beverages.
Yes.
Now, below them, apparently much below them for diabetes and heart disease, are the actually refined grains. And that's the nuance because I used to put that right in the danger zone, refined grains, the white flour and all that. But they found in these studies that some people with respect to diabetes and inflammatory markers actually did fine or better. Now I don't want to leave people with, okay, I'm gonna go eat this white bread and I'm gonna go eat the other. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying on a relative basis to eating that meat, especially processed. What's highly processed meat? That's your sausage, your bacon, your ham, your cold cuts, your corned beef. Those hot dogs. That's comfort food for a lot. You talk about being comfortable, Dr. Z. People are real comfortable eating those foods, and we are dying from it. From cancer, diabetes, heart disease, dementia. And so, but the point here is we need to expand on this. There's a lot more we need to say about this. That's just a primer if you want
Yeah.
to add to it, Dr. Zarif. But we can talk about, when we do talk about it, we can give people resources too, where they can get more details on this. But
That
thanks
is.
for bringing it up.
Oh yes, by all means, fantastic. That. Oh man, just like Dr. James said, is this one right here is a great subject. Make sure that you put into your calendar 8 a.m. every Saturday, and we're going to be here. We're going to be here. We've been here now for quite a while, and we're not going anywhere. We're getting bigger and better, and we're doing it with the brilliance and the presence of Dr. James and the wonderful Carolyn not gentle anymore, but Carolyn is in the house. we, yeah,
I'm sure she's still gentle.
yeah, she's gentle. So this is just really fantastic, and just want to be very very thankful for you, Dr. James, coming in today. Carolyn, thank you for your incredible work as always. We're going to make things better. Let me go ahead and step aside for a second so Carolyn can tell you about the continuation of the 28 day kickstart.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zarif, and thank you so much, Dr. James. Information, wonderful information. I'm actually, Dr. Zarif turned it over to me, but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. James to explain the 28-day kickstart to plant-based eating, because that is all you, Dr. James. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll correct you though; it's not all me, because Doctor Zarif kicked this thing off on the first day on January 20th with an excellent presentation about how we should judge, how we should consider our foods in terms of some of the foods we should eat, some of the foods we should lay off of or cut back, and that got the ball rolling. We had 160 people in those virtual seats listening to Dr. Zarif. And then a week later, we had a certified health coach and a registered dietitian bring it home in terms of organizing our thoughts for these and going from the knowledge to the actual plate and making these action moves we were talking about. And then just last night, we had a board certified cardiologist break down how you can preserve your heart health, looking at it from the lens of a cardiologist with screening tests and things like that. And so these things these were recorded, so these can be found on our Healthy Living with a Vision Foundation YouTube site. But the final day will be a week from yesterday. It'll be next Tuesday, February 10th. And that's when I'm going to be doing a wrap up. I'm going to be dropping those pearls of wisdom Dr. Zarif and others already preceded me with and give you a couple of nuances. So definitely join us at 7 p.m. Central Time on February 10th, as I mentioned. We usually have a Q&A that follows the Sunday, but this Super Bowl that follows the Tuesday events. But this is Super Bowl Sunday coming, so we won't be having it. We will have one after I believe we'll have one. Yeah, we will have one after my talk next Tuesday. But thanks for giving me the couple minutes to shout out about this, and I will hand it right back to you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. James. I so much appreciate this. So, everyone, yes, this was a pre recording, just in case you were wondering. This is a pre recording. So, any comments or any likes or anything like that, we still thank you so much for those. We want to make sure that we always show that we are grateful for everyone that shows up to the Mind of Nature every Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. We appreciate your time and just the love that you share with us while we are here. So again, thank you all so much for that. I'm going to toss it back over to Dr. Zari.
Okay, everybody, I'm sure you got your lessons now and you got your instructions. We're looking forward to seeing you. Have a beautiful rest of this weekend. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you next week. I'm Dr. Zarif, the nutritionist.
And also, I'm so sorry, Dr. Zarif, happy birthday to you. His birthday was on Thursday. We want to say happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
You're so very welcome. You can go ahead and close out again, Dr. Zarif.
Thank everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time. I'm Dr. Zarif, the nutritionist.